Hi, this is Barbara Emodi, going to do a reading from Cold Case, Crafting a Cold Case, a book that I wrote at the request of some readers in Australia, you would know who you are, who told me they loved reading about winter and snow. And that got me thinking that what it meant to me to grow up in a very cold climate, how it affected who I am, how I look at the world, and really how we negotiate our day-to-day lives. So I wrote this book, and I'm very happy to have done it. But to give you an idea, it's a little bit different because it is in the winter. So many of my books are about Valerie sewing. She does a bit more knitting this time because of the time of the year. Something that is mentioned are these thrummed mitts. See these mitts and those little bird's eyes? Those are made from tufts of wool roving that look like this, that you fold and capture in each stitch. And then, so the inside of the mitt gets full of all this kind of cotton ball of wool, and after a while it kind of mats and molds around your hand. Very warm. So many things I could put in this book. I really enjoyed it. So, of course, chapter 1 of this book that actually is will be released October 25th is available for pre-order now. So it's a fall 2025 book. Okay, I picked up the brand new ball of sock wool. I settled into my chair. I'd walked the dog, talked to my store, texted the family, and done the breakfast dishes, and put in a wash. I'd saved this yarn, bright pink and turquoise, for a gray day. It was February. Christmas was over. The spring birthdays were months away. This pair was for me. I picked up my needles to cast on. Next to my cup of tea on the side table, my phone beeped. I put down my needles and looked at the screen. Emergency. Get here, ASAP, before I kill somebody. What? I tapped back. Catherine Walker, ex-librarian and bed and breakfast commander-in-chief, never lost her cool. She was as good at that as I wasn't. I knew in my heart that if terrorists ever kidnapped me and locked me up in outer Siberia, it would be Catherine who would find me and set me free. Of course, that would come with a talking to about my reckless behavior, but I knew she wouldn't leave me unsaved. That something had rattled her? That scared me. What was going on? I tried again. Tell me, I added. No response. ASAP, she tapped back. That meant now. On my way, I responded. I jumped out of my chair. I threw my wool and needles into my knitting basket, ran over to the hall closet, pulled out my insulated winter coat, my feral toque, and thrummed wool mittens. Toby, my golden retriever, watched me dress. I didn't usually move this fast. Don't worry, I reassured him. I'll be back soon. Everything is fine. Toby sighed and lay down. He didn't believe me. I didn't blame him. I closed the front door behind me. I heard Toby run over to the couch to watch me leave from the bungalow's picture window. I grabbed the stair railing and stepped down. I'd put salt on the steps, and I was glad of it now. They were ice-free and like the path to the driveway or what I could see of the street. There'd been some melting during the day, but at 4:30 in the afternoon the sun was beginning its slow exit. Not long until it would freeze and be slippery again. I'd be careful driving down the shore road. I sat in the driveway before I left, running the car to let the engine warm up. There was still no message back from Catherine. I turned up the heater and tuned in to the local station, CKGC. And now for the weather. The current wave of Arctic air is lifting folks with temperatures to climb near to above freezing over the next few days starting in the morning. Until then, don't forget to dress up and make sure those pets are not left outside too long. As always, frostbite and hypothermia can happen this time of year. But that's February in Nova Scotia and we're used to it. This was not news. I turned the radio off and backed out of my driveway. Where was Catherine? When I arrived at the inn, Catherine, co-owned with my cousin Rolly, everything looked normal from the outside. The old sea captain's homestead, a massive dark red Victorian 3-story structure, windows and doors defined by elaborate woodwork, skillfully carved by the same craftsmen who had built schooners, stood on 3 acres above the North Atlantic. The view, take your breath away beautiful, in the summer, but the sea was now the sea under the cliffs at the end of the property was wild gray and sometimes violet. As a result, the fair weather months, May till late October, were when the bed and breakfast did most of its business. Guests this time of year, in winter, were infrequent. As far as I knew, the only occupants of the inn this month were Rolly and Catherine, and the inn's overweight, much-indulged grey cat, Dusty. Catherine had no problem keeping Rolly and Dusty in line, so if she was on the verge of murder, someone else was involved. I wondered who they were. I pushed the inn's heavy oak door open and stepped into the entry to find out. I took off my coat, pushed my mittens and hat down into a sleeve, and hung it up in one of the hooks on the faded cabbage rose wallpaper to the right of the door. The reception desk was empty. Catherine? I walked down the long, high-ceilinged hall to find her, past the pictures of the stern, mono-tinted faces of the community's past. Schooner captains, successful boat builders, pirates, rum runners, and a few politicians, the last group out of place, memorable as they were for ambition and not skill or nerve. "It's me, Valerie," I called out again. "I got here as fast as I could." No answer. This didn't feel right, not at all. I heard a noise, banging at the end of the hall, metal on metal, angry sounds from behind a closed door. I ran down and opened the door to the kitchen. Inside, Catherine Walker, the Blue Nose Inn's front desk manager, was on the floor surrounded by cookware. "Catherine, what's going on? What's the emergency? Why the pots?" I noticed the reference desk librarian turned innkeeper had a measuring tape in one of her hands, a pencil behind her ear, and what looked like a detailed map, or battlefield diagram, in her lap. My friend and my cousin's love interest looked up at me. She looked like she wanted to cry. This horrified me. I'd never seen tears in Catherine's eyes before. She wasn't the type. Losing composure was my job, not hers. Catherine didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a twisted tissue from the sleeve of the cotton turtleneck she wore under her quilted vest and blew her nose loudly, like an old man. The noise startled me. Catherine was an accomplished quilter, of the kind who felt the more pieces the better, a competitive 12 hand stitches to an inch. Self-control was her middle name. But now she was too upset to speak. Instead, she held up a paper for me to read. I took it from her damp hand and sat down on a kitchen chair. There were no words. Only a diagram of shelves, the dimensions carefully marked with double-headed arrows. I stared at Catherine. It looked to me that the crumpled woman on the floor was measuring her cookware and plotting its placement on the shelves. I was shocked. Locked in a kitchen with a measuring tape for I was shocked. Getting pretty excited by the story. If I was locked in a kitchen with a measuring tape for 100 million years, I'd never think to do this. "Is this your crisis?" It was my turn to be at loss for words. "Organizing your pots?" Catherine grabbed the edge of a counter and pulled herself to her feet. No, I just find organizing is the only thing that calms me down when I'm losing it. Like when I have trouble sleeping, I lie in bed at night and arrange things in my mind. Do you ever do that? Never, I answered truthfully. I tried again. What's got you so upset? The prepper, she said. He's down in the basement with Rolly right now, in the dark with the pipes. Every time we turn around, he's watching us. He says he's preparing for the end of time. Here, in my bed and breakfast, she pressed her forehead against the cupboard door and sniffed. I'd never seen Catherine this distressed, not even the time she arrived at quilting class without her quarter-inch foot. You have to tell me more, I said. Who are you talking about? Someone I brought here. It's all my fault. He'll never leave. I can feel it. Catherine dragged herself over to a chair and collapsed. He'll be here forever, waiting for a disaster, unless I can find a way to make him disappear. I knew what to do. There we go. Crafting a cold case. It's going to be exciting.